What's up? Thanks for being here. It's Tom. I've missed you. I've missed talking baseball with you. I'm excited to be back today. First Monday of the month. That means I'm updating my prospect list. So we also have the draft coming up in about a week. You have the note there. Draft is July 13th and 14th. So this is a great time. Just, I always try to update my prospect list on the first Monday of every month. But this is just great timing because it's good to get a update in of the system before all these new draftees come in. And then it's kind of a thing I like to do is kind of throw these new draftees into my list before I kind of get contaminated, we'll put it, by looking at other prospect rankings elsewhere. Not to say that doesn't happen eventually. And Baseball America just recently released a top 30 prospect and updated list. They've been updating their list way more often, which is really cool. And I did compile this updated list for me before I looked at that list. I have looked at it now, but this list for me was compiled prior to that. And we're going to go through my entire top 50 here. Not a ton of changes, especially up top. There's quite a bit of changes down lower, which is pretty normal. When you go to 50, there's not that much that separates like my number 51 prospect from even like my number 31 prospect. So definitely some changes here. There are some guys I want to call out and just talk about. But just a heads up, no, I don't have any video today. So if you were looking for video, we're not going to go through any highlights. We'll get back to that eventually. I should say too, in case you missed it, I haven't been doing the system recaps. If you haven't seen me in a while and didn't see that community post I put out, my day-to-day life has changed greatly, but me and my family are kind of getting into the swing of the new normal. So hopefully you'll be seeing me a little bit more often. Again, still going to be doing my prospect list updates on the first Monday of every month for sure. But also going to be doing my usual draft stuff. Every draft, I try to compile a lot of the coverage from the draft and keep it on the channel here. Really, as much as anything, just to preserve it in one spot and have it live on the channel. Like I can go back the last couple years and look at all of the draft coverage of the Twins draftees. That's pretty cool. And, and then at the end of the draft, I will talk about my reaction to it as well. So that's going to be coming up. Trade deadline discussion. Absolutely. We'll be talking about some trade deadline stuff leading up to and after the trade deadline. So just because the system recaps are at least on hold for now, doesn't mean you completely won't be seeing me. So let's get into this though. Updated prospect list. As you can see here with my top 14 in view here, not a ton of changes. I did flip-flop Kalen Culpepper and Charlie Soto. Unfortunately, Charlie Soto's been out with an injury, so we haven't seen him much. And Kalen Culpepper going up to Double-A and playing well this year and really continuing to look really comfortable as a shortstop. So that's as much Culpepper moving up as it is Soto moving down, really. I don't really like to ding guys for injuries. At a certain point, you kind of have to, but, and maybe that tells you, maybe me still having Emmanuel Rodriguez above Luke Keeschel tells you that, but Luke Keeschel's injured right now, so he's been injured a ton. Unfortunately, that's a big theme of the Twins prospect list right now. But thankfully, Walker Jenkins is healthy and playing well. Emmanuel Rodriguez is currently on a rehab assignment, and I'd imagine he should be rejoining the Saints before too long. And Luke Keeschel probably should be I'd imagine he's getting healthy before too much longer. So that's exciting. So not a whole lot of movement within my list. Something interesting I want to call out that's kind of happened with Culpepper moving up is I'm kind of copping out in a way. I've got five pitching prospects in a row. Like, pick your flavor. Pick your flavor. Who's the best Twins pitching prospect? It depends. It depends on what you're going for, I guess. Charlie Soto, Dason Hill, Andrew Morris, Connor Prelip, and Marco Raya. I will say, though, it was looking for a while that Dason Hill was probably going to be my number one until he hasn't been throwing as many strikes of late. And that's always kind of something that's going to be a concern for me. Especially when we're talking, I have him at number 6. When we're talking about a potential top 5, this guy I like quite a bit. So it's not like I have big concerns about Hill since he hasn't been throwing as many strikes. Andrew Morris is currently hurt. Connor Prelip missed a little time with a blister. That's totally, a normal thing that happens to everybody every once in a while. Pitching well in Double-A. Still kind of building up. I still don't know what to make of his long-term role. Marco Raya was a guy who I was, basically said this is his last chance last month, and he has pitched well, and he's pitching deep into games. For him, I should call this. For Marco Raya, him pitching 5-6 innings, that's a huge deal. And, I think a lot of people have maybe moved completely off Marco Raya. If you look at his year-to-date numbers, they're garbage. But again, he's been throwing better of late. And I've tried to keep in mind with him is this guy's 22 years old. Him being drafted out of high school, that just creates so many challenges. And this is something that Charlie Soto and Dason Hill are going to go through. Think about when you were 19, 20, 21, even 22, like Marco Raya is now. And just like learning how to be an adult in a job, like we can all relate to that to some degree. And Marco Raya is doing that right now. In addition to all those other things that we think about with baseball players, like he's also trying to put that together. And I think that is part of some of Marco Raya's struggles this year are just like sort of human growth and like, the challenges of finding consistency and like approaching failure in general, let alone in baseball. So, and I think Marco's working through some stuff, and I think it's obviously been a challenge this year, but I'm really encouraged that he had a good month of June and is coming out and pitching well. So, obviously I didn't move him up, but I kept him at 9, which I think a lot of other places might not have him, if you're reacting as often as I am on a monthly basis, probably would have dropped him lower than that by now. But his pitches are legit. He's throwing a ton of breaking balls now, and I think that's an interesting formula. I'm not sure if he's, talking about Prelip's future role. I'm not sure what Raya's future role is, but love seeing him throwing 5-6 innings more often. Gabriel Gonzalez, this is a guy that I did probably make the biggest move up on in terms of guys, especially up higher, moving into my top 10. There's just things with Gabriel Gonzalez to where, he's never going to be a 5-tool player. Like, he's not going to be a huge asset defensively. He's not going to be a huge asset on the bases, but he has been swiping some bags. I don't think that's going to carry forward as he moves up. I don't think you're going to see Gabriel Gonzalez stealing bases in the major leagues a ton, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I can't imagine his sprint speed metrics are that great, but hitting, and I'm kind of pushing some levers on my list some to try to incentivize. Like I in the past, I think I have kind of dinged guys for being bat only because what happens when the bat goes? That's kind of the thing with bat only prospects. Once you're in Double-A and you're still hitting, like, if we look at you could do this to a degree with any team, but look at the current makeup of the Twins. How badly could they use a bat? Like look at the average team's DH and look at who they're rolling out there, and it's like, well, actually, a guy who can just hit, if he actually can hit, that's a major leaguer. Even if he doesn't run the bases well, even if he can't field anywhere, hitting is really hard to find. And I'm not saying that that's more of a general topic. I'm saying in the context of Gabriel Gonzalez, keeping him at 10 doesn't say like, oh, this is a major league hitter in my eyes. But I'm kind of embracing him more, and it's becoming more clear as he started off the year so well in Cedar Rapids, moves up to Double-A. That's when it's like, okay, 21 guy in his age 21 season, first time in Double-A. Let's see this, and he is on fire. He's playing so well. Gabriel Gonzalez, very impressed with his season so far. Really encouraged with what he's done. It was kind of easy to look at his output in Cedar Rapids and say, yeah, well, I really want to see it at the next level. And now it's happening at the next level, which is really cool. And it's easy to look back on last year and say, okay, this guy probably wasn't comfortable after the trade, struggled to adjust being in a new organization. And also he had injuries too. So we're at the point now where it's kind of easy to write off Gonzalez's unimpressive 2024 and just say, oh, it was a transition year for him and he struggled with it. He's been so good. Let's keep rolling here. Not going to touch on all of these guys. You can see there's some guys I've highlighted here I want to call out in particular. But as the list goes down, not a whole lot of movement. If I was to kind of characterize the Twins system right now, I would say it's pretty flush with a lot of like top 100 type prospects, which is great. So the top is good. Some of those top three guys still like that's an impressive top three since they've all been injured. Jenkins, Rodriguez, and Keishel, since they've all been injured, I think there's kind of some steam that's not there that could be there. But even then, there's a good handful of other guys that are like borderline top 100 or top 100 guys. I do think the system is lacking in depth right now. And, as someone who likes to follow the system on a daily basis and highlight all the guys playing well, and I love it when the system is like super deep and you can look through the top 20, the top 30 and see a bunch of guys not only that you can like prospect-wise, but that are also playing well. And just right now, to be honest, a lot of these guys are either it's kind of hard to really get excited about them as prospects or they're just not playing that well. Like they have some loud tools and they're not playing well. It's kind of how I would describe this system at the moment. But the draft is coming up, so they're going to get a bunch of new talent in. That's going to be exciting. Highlighted Kalai Rosario. He's having a really interesting year in Double-A. I talked about Gabriel Gonzalez running a little bit. Kalai Rosario stealing bases this year, which is something he had never shown before. And he's looking so much more reliable in the outfield. He's never going to be an asset, I don't think, out there, but he does have a big arm. It's kind of like Matt Wallner, who at one point, Matt Wallner was like the worst defensive outfielder I'd ever seen when he was with the Cedar Rapids Colonels. He was so bad. Kalai Rosario was really, really bad too. He's clearly worked hard on that and gotten better. And again, he's never going to be an asset in the field, but now it's like I was viewing him as like maybe a DH only, basically. And now it's kind of a little bit more realistic that he could play some outfield. So that's great. So I bumped him up some. And he's a guy obviously has had some success. He kind of had a lost year last year. So many of these guys we're going to highlight had bad 2024s. Like they had a good 2023, a bad 2024, and now they're bouncing back. I don't know if that's just coincidence or if some of these guys being back with Brian Dinkelman in Wichita, their manager. He was with Cedar Rapids and now he's with Wichita. But on the flip side of that, Dinkelman replaced Ramon Borrego, who's working for the Twins now and had a really good reputation. So it's not like we can say the guy that Dinkelman replaced was like fired or something. He was actually promoted. So it's kind of interesting to try to figure out why so many of these guys in Double-A are having bounce back seasons. Tanner Schobel among them, he's hurt right now, but he was sort of the first guy earlier this year to sort of bust out and get promoted to AAA. Now a bunch of his Wichita teammates are playing so much better. Kyler Fedko is among them. But real quick, just want to call out like Jose Olivares and Adrian Bojorquez are both guys. Really great stuff. Really good stuff. Some inconsistencies, some struggles to throw strikes, but these guys have like nasty big league stuff. So both of them in A-ball, Olivares in high A, Bojorquez in low A. So they're miles away. Probably if I was to say now, I would guess that they'd be relievers, but both potentially big league arms, and I moved them up. Bojorquez has been so inconsistent. So, like, when he can't throw strikes at all, he goes down my list. And you see last month he was at 30. When he starts to throw strikes again, he's going to be tickling into the top 20. So, that's just where I'm going to be with him because when he's on, it's very impressive. And when he's off, it's like, oh, this guy's not going to get to Double-A. And there's a huge range of potential outcomes for Adrian Bojorquez, but he is a name to know for sure. Kyler Fedko, again, these Double-A guys, I don't know where this is coming from. He is hitting for so much power. He's, among the guys who would be considered for Twins Daily or Twins Minor League Hitter of the Year for 2025. So Fedko giving him some love, moving him up. Great performance this year. Scrolling on down. Corey Lewis, I want to call out. I did move him down He's kind of interesting. He's evolving into, everybody knows that he's had the knuckleball, right? But it's been mostly like sort of a change of pace pitch that he only throws a handful of times a game. He has now shifted, and Corey Lewis is a knuckleballer. He is now featuring that pitch because he just couldn't do that in AAA. He wasn't getting away with the rest of his repertoire with the knuckleball mixed in. So they're kind of trying to use him as more of like a traditional knuckleballer where that's his number one pitch. I think that's kind of interesting, although I have moved him down my list quite a bit. Rain Down Cone, maybe this one is unfair because maybe that is, I mentioned how I don't like to move guys down for injuries, and maybe that is injury related. You could maybe say the same about Peyton Eels. Maybe a month from now at this time, I'll be acknowledging that was an inappropriate drop for those guys. Pierson Ohl, this might seem kind of crazy, and actually we can talk about all three of these guys here. Pierson Ohl, Andrew Cossetti, and Aaron Sabato, all going from not inside my top 50 to, in Ohl's case, inside my top 30. If you've been following me along, you know I fell in love with Pierson Ohl in 2023. I think in the zine, the offseason zine heading into 2024, he was my number 17 Twins prospect, if I'm remembering that correctly. I think I've had him as a top 20 Twins prospect when nobody would have had him anywhere near that close. Because he had a incredibly under-the-radar, under-reported velo jump at the end of that season to where he was like touching 96 and 97 sometimes. This is like a guy whose traditional scouting reports say like, oh, you know, great control command, great changeup, but he only tops out at like 91. All of a sudden, he was lighting up the radar guns. And I reacted to that huge. Whatever happened last year, the times I saw him, and there's not a lot of velo on the or velo data on the AA guys, so I don't know completely what the velocity picture looked like from him last year. But when I'd see him, you know, the velo was down, and he just really struggled last year, and didn't really look like a pitcher of much interest. Things are back going his direction again this year after he got relegated to the bullpen. So this has kind of been like a huge year for Pierson Ohl of like facing his future and having to figure things out, and he's thriving. He's up in AAA with the Saints, looking good. Again, I don't think this system is very deep, so take that in mind as I'm pushing these guys up. It may seem kind of extreme. Part of that is I don't really love a lot of the guys in this range too, so it's sort of both sides. But Andrew Cossetti, another guy who I got really excited about in 2023, is playing really well, hitting a ton with Wichita again. So these are kind of guys to where now that they're playing well again, you take a look at the whole picture, but you can kind of say like, well, these guys own these skills. And have they carried them forward all the time and shown them in their performances? No, but they're back again. So I think you can kind of take a positive, optimistic outlook on those guys. Now, obviously, Sabato being a former first-round draft pick of the Twins, a little on the older side, only a first baseman. I don't think he's a huge asset defensively. He runs the bases better than you would imagine for a first base only kind of slugging type guy. Give him credit there, but yeah, what a comeback! What a comeback for Sabato! What a story! You know, as you can see, I'm still not really like on fire about his prospect status, but just the fact that he's back up here says a lot, and I've been really enjoying Aaron Sabato. He seems like a guy who's got a fun personality as well, so I like just watching him play in general. Here's where we see kind of some of the guys who fell for some of these guys moving up. And they're guys who are really young, international signing guys that we don't have a lot of information on up until now, and we're kind of getting a lot of samples on these guys. Yes, Mercedes hasn't done much. Demiri Pena has not played well. And then Diabert De Los Santos is striking out like almost 40% of the time. I mean, like the talent is exciting, and he's doing some other things, hitting for power and things like that, but the amount of strikeouts for a guy at that level is pretty crazy. Moving on down. I will say this about the other guys in this range, like Carlos Taveras, Talon Serrano, Santiago Castellanos. Very exciting. You're going to see some lists that have these guys like in the top 30 for sure, maybe even higher than that. Personally, I'm considering maybe not ranking guys before their age 18 season anymore. It's just too crazy. It's too crazy to try to prospect rank 16, 17-year-old guys. I put the cap on. My list is kind of weird because I put the cap on 27. Once you're in your age 27 season, I consider you too old to be a prospect. So that's Deshaun Kersey Jr., Carson McCusker, Mickey Gasper, guys like that. There's some other Anthony Prados. There's some others. So if you haven't seen those names and you were looking for them, that's why. Once they get to that age season, I don't consider them a prospect anymore. I'm thinking about putting a bottom limit too, because it's just insane. Insane how young these guys are playing in pro ball in the DSL out in the Dominican. But names to know, probably guys who are actually higher prospect status than I have them. But that's maybe a quirk of my list, is I'm not going to elevate these guys quite yet. John Klein, a Minnesota native who I think went to community college in Iowa and signed as an undrafted free agent with the Twins. And his big fella has just been pitching well, and his velo is jumping. So he pops into my list for the first time. Alejandro Hidalgo, guy they acquired back in the, who was it? Gio Urshela trade, I think it was, from the Angels. Missed all of last season, is pitching really well. So another guy kind of popping in. These are a couple of guys that I could envision at this time next month, maybe being another step up. Noah Cardenas is another guy re-entering my list I've had ranked in the past. Good defensive catcher. It seems like a lot of people have had good things to say about working with him too. So like pitchers like throwing to Noah Cardenas. That's great. He's up in AAA for the first time in hitting. He's been a good on-base guy traditionally, but he's hitting for some power, so that's exciting. And then rounding things out are a couple fallers, Michael Carpenter and Eli Jones. The guys who dropped off the list too. So all these new names entering the list, these are all the guys that dropped off. The highest being Dylan Questad, who I had at number 33. I had him even higher earlier than that. I got excited about him, and he just has not thrown strikes at all. Again, that's really hard to look past with anybody, but especially if you're in the lower levels of the minor leagues and you can't throw strikes. Like, that's a huge red flag. So, like, you have good enough stuff to live in the zone if you're Dylan Questad. So, like, you can get away with a lot more in the zone stuff at that level than you can up higher. So if that's the case here and you still can't throw enough strikes, I'm going to react pretty strongly to that. And unfortunately he's off the list. All these other guys, they weren't huge prospects to begin with. Diego Cartaya, man, that is shocking how he looks like he's never played baseball. Insane. So anyway, that's probably enough rambling for this one. I had a lot to say. I know it's been a while. I had a lot of baseball to talk about. I had a lot to get out of my system here. So let me know what you think about that. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, draft is coming up next week, July 13th and 14th. We will be definitely sharing stuff, and I will be discussing the draft class. Trade deadline stuff coming up. So you'll be seeing me. System recaps are still on hold, but I'll try to put together some highlight packages as well. If you're looking for more daily minor league content, Twins Daily runs a daily minor league report with information across the whole system. I write that usually every Friday, once a week for sure, but usually every Friday. So I am back participating in that, kind of going back to my roots a little bit. So check that out. But either way, really appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching. We'll talk again soon.